Cyrus, give us a little background in your history on insulin resistance and why this is very near and dear to you.
For sure. Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me here. This is it's always a pleasure to talk about insulin resistance. Insulin resistance is probably the single most confusing topic in the world of metabolic health in today's world. And the reason that I say that is because there's so many people who are talking about it online, especially on social media, and depending on who you listen to, you will hear a completely different story. So everybody's talking about the same condition, but the way that people talk about it and the tips and tricks they give for you to quote unquote reverse insulin resistance are fundamentally different. There's a whole class of people who tell you to eat more meat and more chicken and more dairy and more olive oil and higher fat diet because that's going to reverse insulin resistance. And then there's people like me and like you who come from the plant-based world who tell you to lower your fat intake and increase your intake of plants and increase your intake of fiber, and that's going to help you reverse insulin resistance. So the viewer is caught in the middle, and they're like, well, he said to have more fish oil, and you said to have more berries, and what am I supposed to do? I don't really know what to do. So the reason why I got into this in the first place is because I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes back in the year 2002, and I spent the first year of my career living with diabetes, eating a high fat diet and eating a low carbohydrate / high fat diet. And I was told that that was a way for me to control my use of insulin and to control my blood glucose. I didn't know anything about diabetes. I didn't know anything about human nutrition. So I was like, all right, sounds like a plan. I'll just do it. And in the first year, I recognized that my blood glucose was not controllable. It was very high, and it was very hard to get under control, and that my insulin use was creeping up over the course of time. It started at about 25 units a day, and then it went up to 28, then 30, then 36, then 39, then 42, then 47. Before I knew it, I was injecting 55 units of insulin a day on some days, and I was like, what the hell is going on here? I'm not eating very much carbohydrate, but yet my insulin use is going up, and my glucose is harder to control. Something is wrong. So I switched over to eating a plant-based diet because I was just looking for a better way to live. I just wanted to feel more energy. I just wanted to have better blood glucose control. And when I switched over to eating a plant-based diet, within the first 24 hours, my blood glucose came crashing down. I had to back off on the amount of insulin I was using, and that got better on day 2, and then day 3, and then day 7, and then day 15, and then day 180, and so on and so forth. And what I recognized very early in the process was that even though the world of the diabetes wants you to believe that eating carbohydrates or eating carbs is bad for you and that it's going to cause your blood glucose to go higher, it is a fundamentally incorrect statement. And by teaching people that carbs are bad, what they're actually doing is educating people to eat more fat-rich foods. And by doing that, they're actually making people more insulin resistant. So it can be a very complicated process. And maybe what we could do is kind of step through it piece by piece by piece in a very systematic manner to educate people about the fact that blood glucose is influenced by more than just your carbohydrate intake. That's the easiest way to think about it. The amount of carbohydrate you eat matters. The type of carbohydrate you eat matters. But in addition to that, protein-rich foods can influence your blood glucose. Fat-rich foods can influence your blood glucose. And when you put all of those things together and start to understand that carbohydrates and protein and fat all have an effect on your blood glucose, then you have the ability to manipulate it to your advantage so that you can control your blood glucose, control your insulin use, and get at the root cause of insulin resistance inside of your liver and muscle and reverse that process so that it disappears